Hello and welcome to PSG Review, the show back from the international break, ready to attack the next phase of this autumn at hand, such as it is. Absolutely huge week ahead of us, and we will have a look at in what shape we enter it. A few extensions are in the cards and some general drama.
You are listening to PSG Review. Here's your host, Mikko.
Thank you for being with me right now. There's quite a bit happening. The news are coming in and we are eagerly, of course, waiting for the confirmation, but it is by one of the more trustworthy French journalist, Fabrice Hawkins of RMC, that has reported that PSG is very close to extending 3 players, and not just any players, but some of the very key players of this current project. Players that almost any team in the world would love to have, and those are Vitinha, Nuno Mendes and Achraf Hakimi. So contract extension talks are on the way with those people and looking very good according to the reports. They are all starters for us, of course. I imagine all of them are about to have a nice pay rise, but fair play to them. Very much fingers crossed for those new deals that they would be announced and confirmed soon enough. For now, all we have are these reports, but like said, the source is more reliable than most others in the industry of football. There's also quite sizable conversation around our club, or adjacent to it at the very least, but I will not really cover it, certainly not at this point, for the reasons that I will tell you. It is the Kylian Mbappe situation, and he no longer is a PSG player, of course, so his drama is absolutely not our drama. It's very important. This is not something that I'm talking about in this show. That's for his new supporters and his new club to handle. But because he did mention PSG in connection to the news that are very serious, the most serious accusations around of sexual violence which would have taken place in Stockholm, Sweden, and he has now implied in a tweet that the whole thing would have had something to do with PSG. I suppose not the criminal act itself, I assume, but the leak of it in the press or setup or something, not quite sure. His tweet was suggesting some level of conspiracy by the club in order to perhaps destabilize him or defame him, make him less of a trusted person along those lines ahead of the hearings in regards to his last contested bonuses from PSG. I have explained that case in some detail in some of the previous episodes, but I will not say more about this case at all because I don't know the facts at all. Obviously, it's a very serious matter, and in this type of thing, speculation can be, well, very unhelpful, and I have no insight or information one way or another when it comes to any of the details. It is none of my business. The accusations against him are very serious, and the accusation he has made against PSG are very serious, and in making them, PSG was somehow sabotaging him before hearings about the loyalty bonus. That is a very serious allegation by him to make against his former club, and you'd imagine that he should have some evidence to back it up. Otherwise, it is something of an audacious thing to suggest. I genuinely mean when I say this. Let justice take place in all of these cases, whatever that means. Whoever benefits from that, but let the truth come out and justice be served, because some things are so much bigger than football. We don't get stuck into that case anymore. His antics are connected to PSG only in as far as the settlement case goes. That will have a direct impact on our transfer budgets and such. The financial fair play, I assume, but the football is what we are here for, and football has also been played. Strasbourg came to the City of Lights, Love and Football Paris on Saturday night, which is yesterday as I record this on Sunday. Parc des Princes was back ready for club football after the international break, and PSG with certain amount of rotation. At least Marquinhos, Nuno Mendes, Achraf Hakimi and Ousmane Dembele started on the bench, and on the pitch we had players like Milan Skriniar in defense with William Pacho, Beraldo on the left and Warren Zaire-Emery on the right, so not the usual formation there, or rather not the usual players in those positions. One of the surprises was young Seny Mayulu in the midfield with Vitinha and João Neves, and in attack our well-rested false nine Marco Asensio, one of the very few players who don't get a national team call during this international break. And on his side we had Bradley Barcola and Desiree Doué. That's an abundance of technical skill skill and pace by those two wingers. Youthful excitement and fearlessness. All in all, pretty young starting lineup for PSG. On TV they said that the average age was 22, so I'm sure they had made their calculations accurately. Not our best starting lineup, of course. It was heavily rotated, but a reasonable one considering what kind of schedule we have ahead of us. And also another consideration was that Randal Kolo Muani had injured himself, I think, in some of the training sessions, so he was not an option to use in this match. The rain was pouring as ever in the 15 degrees Celsius Parisian Saturday night, that is 59 in Fahrenheit, but the park was in full splendor and the ultras were ensuring that the team felt the shoulders on top of which they were standing. Absolutely wonderful atmosphere. It felt louder than usually, especially towards the end of the match. The game itself was initially very tentative football in that it was end-to-end game and neither of the teams were really able to establish a longer stretch of possession and control of this game. PSG had more of the ball, sure, but not all that much to show for it. Seni Mayulu got a decent shot, it hit the goalpost. Almost doesn't count, but he's a player that is always dangerous and always ready to remind us in case we had forgotten. Finally, around 17 minutes played, the same young Seni Mayulu blasted the ball in the near top corner with one touch from a pass as precise as it gets by Bradley Barcola. Towards the end of the first half, PSG started to control the game a little bit more, but I will give Strasbourg a lot of credit for actively pursuing the result here. There was no parking the bus from their side, which is very refreshing, of course. Their new manager was having good plans, good tactics, and it was fun to watch. Seni Mayulu might have even surprised himself later on in the first half as he found himself free heading towards the Strasbourg goal, but this time his shot went all the way to the ultras in the Oiteux stand. Fair play to the young man. He could have had a first half hat-trick, but one goal is not too bad considering that it was his first start of the campaign. Halftime, it was 1 goal advantage to our team in red and blue. PSG 1, Strasbourg 0. Then quite a start for the second half by PSG. After a minute or two, Lucas Beraldo was running on his left side and crossed the ball to Desiree Doué in front of the goal. His shot didn't quite go in, but then Marco Asensio was there and he did what was needed to finish that action. It was not the prettiest goal, but all goals count the same, and PSG was then 2-0 up in this match. Moments later, Mayulu again in a dangerous area but couldn't get the ball behind the Serbian Strasbourg keeper Petrovic. It's nice to have these young players like Seni Mayulu. I always enjoy it very much because they are so incredibly eager to attack, well, when it's their role on the pitch. I do remember when Christopher Nkunku and Moussa Diaby, when they started to first get 10 minutes in the first team, it was full speed, all action, never quite knew what was coming up, but there was always something that was happening. They were very eager to show their quality and prove their worthiness to be on that pitch, sharing the space with all those great players. I mean, especially when Nkunku and Diaby were starting, they were sharing the stage with quite a big names, including your Neymars and Di Marias and players like that. PSG had some brilliant chances otherwise also, but it was Strasbourg who got the next goal in this match. Somewhat unfortunate defending by PSG there, and a punishment came as soon as that. Then there was a penalty call as Barcola was brought down in the box, but VAR cancelled that one. Barcola then had his revenge a mere seconds later. It was 3-1 and immediately PSG scored another after that goal. Well, it was an own goal, but Emery had been offside position leading up to that goal, so that didn't count. It was also cancelled. Then Fabian Ruiz, who had come in some moments earlier, had a chance, but it was also wasted. So a lot of things were happening all over. It was really fun to watch. Fast-paced football, and PSG was in control and leading at this point by 2 goals. PSG still got another goal, and that was a great assist by João Neves and a tap in by Lee Kang-in, who had also come in and really, I I think he had changed the game a little bit. I think his technical ability brings always something quite exciting. So when his physical ability doesn't let him down, he is one of our key players. But here's a fun fact. We are here just after mid-October right now as I'm recording. It's 20th of October, and João Neves now has almost as many assists as the best assist providers in Ligue 1 during the entire last season. He has now 6, and Ousmane Dembele and a few others got 8 last season, the full season, 8 assists, and like I said, João Neves is currently at 6. It's pretty remarkable statistic by the young Portuguese. And of course in Benfica he was playing with Angel Di Maria, so perhaps he was inspired by our club's all-time top assist provider. Who knows, maybe they have some kind of a wager for him to take over one of these years. I mean, it's going to take some time. Di Maria was quite a long while in PSG. It was all well and good otherwise, but in the additional minutes after 90 minutes full time, PSG conceded the second goal, a corner kick. Of course it was. Massive concern, those things, how we leak these goals year in and year out since Thiago Silva left really, and we have been struggling to defend our box, and especially the aerial crosses, corner kicks and such. That's something that needs urgent attention. I will say that William Pacho played full minutes again. Great match by him. I keep on complimenting him after every match pretty much, but he has been such a safe pair of hands in our defense and such a trustworthy player. I always say there's no fireworks, but he's just ice cold defender, and that's exactly what we kind of need. And this time he also assisted the goal by Barcola, by the way. So on top of his defensive work, he was also participating in attack and these goals. So as much as I am excited about João Neves, and I am very excited about him, and Desiree Doué as well, who I think will have a great future in Paris, even though, the beginning has been a little bit so. He's been getting fairly regular chances, but not that final, breakthrough. Of course, it's a very early time in his career still in Paris, but so far for me, William Pacho has been the best summer signing for me. Of course, it's difficult to say in the long run, and also it's difficult to ignore the assist by João Neves. And this was also, by the way, the first 90 minutes for Desiree Doué, whose older brother now plays in Strasbourg. Last year they were both playing in Rennes, but the older brother was suspended, so that meant that it wasn't quite the Doué derby at Parc des Princes last night. But my point stands, William Pacho, who has played not very far from every available minute this season, has been an excellent addition to our Parisian squad. We have a big week ahead of us, more of that a little later, but despite all the injuries and everything else, it's pretty fun to watch and support PSG right now. Again, 4 goals by 4 different scorers. The team is the star. 3 different assist providers, because for Asensio's goal, it came from Strasbourg players, so no assist was given to PSG player, but of course it was Desiree Doué who did the work leading up to it, and Beraldo was there before him giving the cross inside the box. So there is a little bit more balance than maybe what there has been before. And having lost our best goal scorer from several previous seasons, and then the predicted top scorer, Gonzalo Ramos, after 20 minutes of the season. He played 20 minutes before he got injured this season in the first match. It was a question mark how it's going to go, but it has been going. It's been going very well, and Bradley Barcola at the moment is the top scorer of Ligue 1 as well. Now, of course, conceding these goals, that is an issue. Credit also goes to Strasbourg, I will have to say. They were playing active, positive football and not just standing in the box protecting their own goal. It really made this a match that was fun to watch. PSG was better, but Strasbourg certainly held their own. PSG women's team, bit of a hot mess at the moment. The news value of that statement suffers every day from as much inflation as, well, everything else these days, I guess. The Champions League came and went from this season. We are losing a whole year in that aspect. The league, however, at least as far as the results are going, that's okay. Well, it's going as well as it could. We have all wins from it so far. most recently, admittedly, a very labored 3 points, more struggled than it ever should have been, but 3 points nevertheless in a derby match against FC Fleury 91. But according to the sports paper L'Équipe, so believe what you will, they have been wrong before, and certainly when it comes to PSG, the exaggerations tend to be there because R's are 3 letters that generate a lot of revenue for them too. But according to them, the locker room is in quite a chaos. Well, I can believe that, whether I believe it from L'Équipe or not. Suggested by this publication is that one of our best players and captain from last season, Grasqueoro, would have been upset for losing the armband, which of course she could easily be. You always change the captain at your peril. I was talking about this earlier in this show when it was happening, earlier in the autumn, and I'm not saying that it's about me saying that. I'm no authority when it comes to it, but it's pretty much common sense, I would say. It never usually ends very well. That's the same thing that I have said on the men's side with Marquinhos. There were some seasons, sometimes, when it was considered whether we should take the armband away from Marquinhos. But it's really a very difficult situation, I think. If you are taking an armband away from somebody, then you have to make peace with the fact that they could be on their way out, that they would say that, okay, in light of all this and lack of trust as it is, maybe I will look some other opportunities elsewhere. And so does the publication L'Équipe go on to suggest that Grasqueoro would have even asked to be allowed to leave the club when next there is an opportunity to do that, which would be truly catastrophic for this collective. Now, the mitigating circumstance in this captain debate is, and it's fair to also acknowledge and say it out loud, is that our current captain, Paulina Dudek, had been captain before her 2 injuries, but those 2 injuries kept her away for 2 years. A lot of stuff happens in 2 years. She missed 2 entire years of football with 2 back-to-back serious injuries, and now she's walked back as a captain, but Grasqueoro isn't even vice-captain, and neither is, it seems, Sakina Karshai, so quite a big changes in that hierarchy, it seems to me, and these are changes that I really don't appreciate very much, obviously. I don't have a say in it, but following this theme aside too, this could be a very costly mistake that at worst could set us further back to what has already been achieved since the last transfer window. These are 2 players we definitely need on our side at their best, and when they combined for the winning goal against Fleury, it was there for all to see. Without them, we might not even have the chance to qualify for the Champions League qualifiers. Next season, we might be outside of the top 4 if those players aren't delivering. They are very key players for us. It also seems that the English goalkeeper Mary Earps might not be too happy either. The suggestion is that she would have felt that not all promises have been kept. I mean, I can only imagine that they haven't been kept, and I could have also guessed that even before she signed. But either way, this could be accurate news or this could be an exaggeration. After the Fleury game, in the post-match interviews, everyone were more or less diplomatic about it, not necessarily consistent. It seemed like it was clearly a little bit of an awkward topic, but this won't come to blows in front of the cameras, of course. But based on the non-tactics of our coach, Fabrice Abriel, we need a new start for this campaign without him. And the same applies to our sporting directors as well. They should also go, but PSG president Nasser Al-Khelaifi is probably busy with the men's team and the courtroom drama I mentioned earlier around there. So the sporting director Angelo Castellasi and his right-hand woman and club legend, I might add, Sabrina Della Noia, former women's team captain, well, they won't fire themselves. It certainly seems a very unlikely thing to happen. One of the players who perhaps the most inexplicably finds herself in this shambles is Eva Gettino. The US centre-back gets scattered minutes without any consistency despite being one of our best players, in my opinion. And she was again selected to her national team, and the US women's national team is pretty solid, so they don't have to take players without the necessary quality, not without merit. Yet in Paris is some sort of an afterthought for our coach. So here we are, waiting for better time and looking at the defensive fragility of this team. There is a chance that at this rate we will be humiliated by Lyon, which is a trip we must make after the international break, which has now started. Now, I don't want it to happen. I would absolutely hate to be defeated by OL, even by one goal, let alone more, but it could happen, whatever my feelings are around it. The humiliation. And if it will happen, let there be consequences. Every week will push some of our players further from wanting to extend. They go to their national teams and tell the stories there and make our future targets to reconsider as well. Every passing day, things are going to become more and more complicated, and the price to pay might just be higher and higher and higher until we break this cycle and start a new phase. We can't afford to not make these changes, and they should be made with some urgency. Absolutely humongous week ahead, a must-win match at Parc des Princes on Tuesday against PSV Eindhoven. They are on top of the Eredivisie there in the Netherlands, but in the Champions League they have so far only one draw and one defeat after 2 matches. This match is what we have to win if we want to have any shot to be in the top 8 and qualify directly to the knockouts. And then on Sunday, it's Le Classique at the Velodrome. Big match, and PSG absolutely need to win it, and ideally in style as well. Marseille, of course, isn't playing in Europe at all, so they have a whole week to prepare. And yet, we have to teach them a lesson about humility, and I think we will. I certainly hope so. Then there's a week in between, or 6 days, and we play against Lens at home, and a few days later, also at Parc des Princes, another season-defining match, and that is against Atletico Madrid. Very intense autumn, but things are also looking up in that sense that soon after Atletico Madrid, we could start looking forward to the return of Gonzalo Ramos. Presnel Kimpembe also seemed to be in the mix again in the collective training. You know, seeing is believing with Presco. I wish him all the best, but I can't yet invest myself emotionally in his return. But apparently Lucas Hernandez could also make his comeback even before the end of the year, ahead of the schedule. That is what is being reported at the moment, but I don't wish that any risks are taken with him either. Not with anybody, because they can just really become costly down the line. They usually are at those Coupe de France matches after the new year. If we have something like that this season, perhaps that is a good place for him to start getting a few minutes slowly but surely. Because here's the thing about Lucas Hernandez, and I really like Lucas Hernandez, but if everybody is available, he might not be a starter at the moment, because Nuno Mendes and William Pacho might take his spots, but he will be such a key player to give them rest without losing any quality. The season is very long. We can't have our best players playing in every match, and we're going to have very important matches coming back to back throughout the whole season, so we are going to need that depth. And Lucas Hernandez is a player who can bring a lot of relief to one of the areas for PSG where our players are getting least rest, I would say, where they get least downtime. Those players who are playing there are pretty much playing all the time. Also, when it comes to Lucas Hernandez, his mentality is absolutely monstrous. Cannot wait to have him back on the pitch. Same, of course, with Gonzalo Ramos and Presnel Kimpembe. We have been having some tough times with the injuries this season. And PSG women's team, they will have now an international break, and after that the moment of truth. Well, yet another one of them in Lyon against Olympique Lyonnais. We have huge weeks ahead of us, football and otherwise. I wish us all luck. I wish our planet luck in the midst of wars and genocide. And it can feel very trivial to think about football right now, but it can also be healthy escape from the real world and its relentlessness of it all, sometimes to catch a breather. My name is Mikko. I hope you're well. Take care, and until next time, and I really mean this, peace.